Okay. Okay, I think we're all here. Are we waiting for anyone else? Okay, let's start the meeting. Town of New Paltz Planning Board, May 24th. So administrative business. The approval of the May 10th minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second. Matt, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have to establish an escrow for the, let's just see, for the Montessori project. I don't see that. 130 Du Bois Road. I'm suggesting a $2,000 escrow. Do I have a motion for that? Matt,
I'll make a motion for a $2,000 escrow for the Montessori project
with a, I'm sorry, with the $1,000 replenishment.
with a $1,000 replenishment.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Second, any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is David here by any chance?
I didn't see him.
Okay. All right, so I'm opening public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? No, Alana, you see anyone?
Don't see anybody.
Okay, we're going to close public comment. First, we have the application review for 525 Albany Post Road. We have been presented with a resolution from our attorney. Ashley, we're just going to vote on this resolution.
Yes, I do have one comment on that. I had spoke to Rick. There's one of the findings about the sidewalk waiver. So that's on page 3, I believe, of the resolution. I don't believe this was specifically discussed. So the way the sidewalk requirements work in your code, it's applicable to either a collector street or a minor street. So I don't believe there's been a determination by the board yet whether this road constitutes a collector or a minor or an arterial. If it's an arterial street, then the sidewalk requirements do not apply. If it's a collector or a minor, then you would have to discuss whether or not to waive that sidewalk requirement. So
I remember sidewalk requirements were discussed. Lyle brought it up about the trees and the sidewalks specifically. And my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it was waived.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's the way I understand it. This is Robert James. That's the way I understand it.
I thought they were waived, but we would
Okay.
a right of way, right? Something like that. Lyle, you remember this discussion? No.
I don't recall a right of way, but I do remember they being waived.
Yes, specifically waived, because Lyle said, he asked on the application, he said, what about sidewalks and sidewalk trees? And, what about that? Because that wasn't covered. So we did actually, even though he doesn't remember it, I remember it very specifically. And the sidewalk was waived.
Okay. So Ashley,
That's good enough for you. Ashley, is it?
So then that could stay there. Then there's no changes that need to be made to the resolution.
Okay.
okay.
Do we need to read the specific conditions?
Yes,
Yes.
we do, I think. Yeah.
Yes, I had asked Jane if she would read them. Ashley, from the conditions.
Page 4, Ashley.
For the specific conditions?
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I believe.
Okay. All right. Number 1, prior to signing of the plat, the applicant must provide proof to the building department that it has paid to the town clerk in full the recreation fee for the additional lot created by this subdivision. Would the recreation fees be specified here, or it's just specified separately?
So the recreation fees are something that the town board sets.
Okay.
So
2, prior to the issuance of a building permit for the newly created lot, 1, all approvals for necessary septic and well for said lot shall be secured. And 2, the property owner must request that the New York State DEC reevaluate potential impacts to bald eagle nests per DEC email dated April 26, 2021. A response from the DEC must be reviewed by the building department, and construction may proceed only in accordance with the DEC response. 3, in accordance with the February 26, 2021 email from New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, there shall be no disturbance east-southeast of the existing stone wall to the Stony Kill Brook to avoid potential impacts to archaeological resources unless prior authorization for such disturbance is secured from the New York State Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. And 4th, finally, prior to the signing of the plat, a note shall be added to the plat as follows, quote, "The property is located in an archaeologically sensitive area. Any future disturbance east-southeast of the existing stone wall on the vacant lot, Lot 2B, is that east-southeast of the proposed residential structure and sewage disposal area to the Stony Kill Brook shall require prior review and approval by the Town of New Paltz Planning Board and the New Paltz State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Division for Historic Preservation," close quote. There is a typo in number 4, residential has a T, not a C. I don't know if that's applicable.
I think there's one more, Jane.
yeah, there's one more specific condition, number 5. It carries on to the top of the next page.
Just a second. Would you mind reading that? I don't have that on this printout that I made. I apologize.
In accordance with the New York State DEC, no blasting or similar loud construction noise shall occur on the subdivided lots to avoid impacts to the pied bill grebes in the area.
Grebes.
Grebes. That's it.
Don't disturb the grebes.
I have a question about number 3, if I may.
Okay.
I thought that we had discussed that there would be a certain time period, because the way this is written, if I were ready to go build tomorrow, I still have to go back to the DEC and hope I get a response from them. So I thought we had said something like a year or 18 months. I think the point was made that if we sit on it for years and don't do anything, you would want to make sure there's no eagle nesting happening.
My recollection on that again was that, and others chime in please, that because the bald eagles, they said it right now, there are no nests on the property, but they said because the bald eagles are in the process of building new nests, that they do it on a yearly basis. So that my recollection again is within a year of building, you would have to have clearance from the DEC that there were no eagles nests on the property so that you could build.
That sounds.
Does that sound right to
I
you?
remember there was a year in there or something.
It was a year, it was within a year. My understanding is that, is it like, say if you waited 2 years, you'd have to check each year to see that there were no nests that had
But if
been
we're
built within the 12 months.
Construction in, say, November, it will fall within the 12-month period that we've done the DEC check. So we would be able to go. But according to this, it
You could
doesn't.
be held up and it doesn't have the year period, but I don't think that the year was the DEC response. The year was the time for the checking.
The year was the planning board's response. The DEC didn't say anything. They just said there's no sign of eagle nesting.
So
I
the
don't
DEC said there's no, currently, there's no nest in the area, but new nests are discovered every year. So it's always a good idea to check back with us as the project plans progress. So they didn't, I have seen in the past with other applications, the DEC will say, this is good, this determination's good for a year, come back if you don't complete construction within the year. But it doesn't seem like they had said that. They do mention that new nests are discovered every year.
So how can we, do
This
we need
might
to
have-
change this?
Yeah, might be adjusted because the year, it isn't quite, this number 2 isn't sort of totally coinciding with what we said to Mr. Albrecht.
So would you, I'm just gonna,
Yeah,
these notes here.
What if you
something
did,
but within a year prior, to the issuance, the property owner must request within a year, would that
Maybe
be right?
if construction is not completed within a year of the DEC's April 26, 21 email, then the property owner must request the DEC reevaluate.
I'd like to say one thing. We couldn't possibly say construction completed. Nobody's going to build a house in a year.
can I make a suggestion that, so, and the 2 I's, if after April 26, 2022, the property owner must request, so that if it's been more than a year or more, then you need to request a fresh DEC.
I think we're all in agreement. It's just how you word it. So
But I think to construct a house usually takes 6 months. Now,
Really?
so I would
Depends on the
say-
house. I had
depends.
a house that took a year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, to get some pipes fixed can take 6 months.
So
Depends on
does
the
that
house.
fix it if we change it to April 26, 2022? Andy?
I think it does, Ashley, if you say if after April 26, 2022, the property owner must request at the DEC, but if it's before that time, then they don't need to get a new DEC letter.
Where does that put us with this
Then
resolution?
the first, I guess the first one though, because you still need the all approvals.
Yeah, so I would put
Maybe we
it
could
at,
just make it into 2, so we'll have prior to the issuance of a building permit for the newly constructed lot, 1, we'll say the same, and then 2, we'll say if
Right.
after April 26, 2021, the property owner must request that the DEC reevaluate per the DEC email of April 26.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so can we move forward with this as amended?
Yes, and the other correction too, I will make to correct the spelling of residential in condition number 4.
Thank you.
There's a couple other items. This is Bob James again. On page 2, where it says letter from applicant's architect, I'd like that changed to engineer or surveyor. Item 7.
Let me just pull up that,
Number 7, you're saying?
could it say letter from, and that's the letter from
Our
Mr.
applicant's
James, that's from
architect.
you? Can I say letter from your firm, the A?
Yep, use that.
Okay.
That's fine. And then the same thing on page 3, second paragraph of findings.
So I'll change it to A, and I'm sorry for the pronunciation. A, D,
A dietitian.
Oh, I see it.
okay, and I'm sorry, the second one was in the
Page 3.
findings?
Yep. Just above recreation fees.
Sure.
Okay, so do we need to note the changes before we vote on this? Or just say as amended?
Yeah, if you want me to run through them quickly, that way everyone's on the same page, I'm happy to do that.
I think that would be good.
So the first change is under the identification of the plans, number 7. The letter is from applicant's architect, now reads letter from A Dietitian and Associates PC. On page 3, The second paragraph in the findings, the letter dated March 31st is noted as being from a Dietitian and Associates. On page 4, specific condition number 2 has been revised so that after the little 2 I's, it reads, if after April 26, 2021, comma, and then continues, the property owner must request that the DEC reevaluate, and goes on as it's reflected.
2022, no?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Can't go back in time.
It's okay.
And then in specific condition number 4, residential, it's in the 1, 2, 3, the 4th line down, residential, the spelling of that's corrected. The C is changed to a T.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the resolution as amended.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Any further discussion?
I have a question, just some clarification, please. Is some of this going to be put on the map, or is this the agreement, or how does it work?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is what going to be put on the map?
These conditions, or how
So
does
I
it?
think one of them specifically does require, let me. So I think it's the condition number 4 requires a note be added to the map about the archaeological sensitive area. But that's the only one with the actual map note that I'm seeing.
Okay.
Okay,
That's all I had.
thank you. All in
Thank you.
favor? It's unanimous.
Alana, I'm sorry, can you just do a roll call on this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Hold on, let me just copy and paste the names here for myself. So Adele,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Mr. Albrecht a question, if I may. And it's gone through, so I hope that you'll tell us candidly. How did you find this process? Did you find this to be a difficult process? Did you find it to be more or less what you expected? Did you feel that it was more than you expected or less, or just how did you feel about this in general? Would you mind telling us?
I don't mind. I think part of the process made a lot of sense to me, and I think it's helpful to, have a community the way you want to have it. But I found some of the process got to a point where I felt that I was being punished for having a large lot with a lot of restrictions, where if I had had a 2.5 acre lot, I don't think I would have the same restrictions.
Restrictions in what sense, Mr. Albrecht?
Where I can put the house, if I need to move the house, we talked about that when we were on site. I felt that the process going through with the board, especially on site when there was a human connection, was very positive, and you could see what we were trying to do. But then I felt like there was a legal side that came into play that felt very heavy.
Legal in respect of, you mean the discussion that went on with you and the ENCB and one of our members about where the house had to be placed while we were in the site visit? Is that what you're referring to?
No, our previous meeting on Zoom.
Right. Was that with respect to the archaeological aspect or the ecological aspect, if I could ask?
Well, I'm not really sure what it was about. I think that was a challenge. I feel that your attorney advised you to do certain things and they felt very controlling and unnecessary.
Okay, do you want to be more specific or you just want to leave it there?
I mean, Chair Ruger, when we were on site and we saw the water over there and I said, this is kind of where the house is going. I'm a designer. I would come out, I would look at it, you know, maybe it's going to be 10 feet that way, 15 feet that way, but this is kind of what we're trying to do. Like, and then Mr. Golden felt like it had to be right there and there's no end if or buts. So
I feel as part of the problem with that was that there was an option that maybe you weren't aware of, that you could have asked for a bare subdivision approval, where you could have decided later where the house was going to go. But since we were approving your lot with the house, I think legally we had to know where the house was going to go. But
Yeah, if I could
think-
just touch on that quickly. So there is
But would
two
that,
types
would
of-
that have, go ahead.
There's two types of subdivision. So as the chair noted, you could have just a bare subdivision where you have to show that each lot's buildable, that it's able to support a single family home. It has the right water, sewer, and all that access and everything. And then the second option is what was pursued here was it was actually a subdivision with site plan elements. So because it was proposing specific site plan elements, I believe at one of the prior meetings, it was asked whether this is being proposed, you know, for approval of the actual site plan elements versus a bare subdivision. And it was the former. So that's why that.
So as a function of the way
Okay.
the drawing was done, Ashley, with the,
Okay,
with the
but
house located?
Let me ask this. If we had proposed a bare subdivision, would we have had to come back to the planning board to specify where the house was going?
Yes.
Who just
I
said
don't-
yes? Who said yes? No, and I think you might have to do that in the village, but I don't believe you have to do that in the town.
No, in the town, you just have to
You
have
have to get a building permit. And
Really?
and get,
So we wouldn't have had to go through all of this rigmarole with the archaeological and the,
Well, those were still issues though, because you need to show it's buildable, right? So if there's restrictions, environmental constraints on the property, those need to be, you know,
But then
those
the
would have to be
building
known because
department
that'll
would go
restrict
through all
where
that?
you can, you know, build, for example,
well, so the
that.
building department would have handled all that?
No, I think that would have still come up as part of the
part of the subdivision.
Because it would have
would
been
So we would have been back to the planning board.
No. You would have gotten your subdivision, but all of those things would have had to have been looked at prior to the approval. But exactly where the house was going to be would not have to be part of it.
My recollection is the house was on the plan, right? If you had just had the subdivision without the house on the plan, I think what they're trying to say, and correct me if I'm misspeaking, Ashley, then it would have been a different situation and it would not have involved the location of the house because the house wouldn't have been located.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're good now, so.
Okay.
Thank you, and
Thank
you have.
you.
And thank you for your candor. I felt a little pain and I wanted to kind of explore that with you. And I appreciate your being, you know, candid with us because we really would, you know, we want to be user friendly.
I appreciate it.
And when it starts to feel like it isn't as user friendly as it should be, then I think it's important to clarify. So thank you very much.
If I could just touch on that too, though, I just want to, just to clarify, Jane, what you had said. So they would though have to show that there's somewhere a house could fit that would comply with zoning. So even if it's not something they don't want to pursue to the site plan level of detail, they would still have to show a house
Show it.
that it, you know, that it could fit a house that would comply with zoning.
Okay,
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 thank you.
thank you very much.
thank you.
Okay, I think next is Tesla. Someone here from Tesla?
Hi, yes, Ed Noseworthy is on with Tesla.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So, Ashley, we have a resolution of approval, of conditional approval here. Can we move forward to that?
Yes, you can move forward.
Okay. Any questions from the applicant? Have you received this?
Yeah, I don't think we have any questions. No.
Okay, and I don't see any
No
specific,
specific
Yeah, I
conditions.
don't believe there's any specific conditions with this one.
Jennifer, you're off the hook. All right, so we're gonna just move to a motion to approve this resolution.
I'd like to just say something first.
Okay,
Just a sort of a comment. There was a letter in the local paper recently about this application, and there was an article in New York Times recently saying that Tesla was the Apple phone of cars because of the specificity of the charging stations and everything. They're locking people into a brand. And by approving this, we're locking people into a brand. Like these chargers won't serve anybody else than Tesla. So that will encourage people to buy a Tesla. In fact, when it's a sort of a monopoly power type thing. It's not a real monopoly, but it's heading in that direction. And I just want to, I think we're pretty far along on this, and we might not have done anything different, but I would just like to have people be aware of that factor out there, and they can look it in the, I think it was in the local paper, and it was in the New York Times, and there was an email, right, Alana?
yes,
Yeah, the letter wasn't written by the person that emailed, was it?
I can't remember.
I'm blanking on his name.
Robert Feldman.
Yes.
there is nothing stopping a charging station from being placed in the town, in the village or the town. They just need to come and get approval, or you're saying it should be a publicly owned charging station?
Well, I'm just saying that we have to be aware, like, like New Paltz always is sort of blocking out big franchises and big business from as much as possible. Over the years, that's been like a tendency of people's thought, and they're letting this one slip by, I think.
Can I say that as somebody that has been shopping this very week for an electric car, that I can name off the top of my head 6 charging stations that are not Tesla, because the Tesla one doesn't exist, within, the corridor of the village, of the 299 corridor. There's one now, of course, at McDonald's. There's one at Village Hall. There's 3 in one parking lot at SUNY. There are 4 or 5 in another one, and then yet more in the other parking lot. I mean, they're really starting to come out. There's one at the community center. Now, if I don't own the car and can name those off the top of my head, I think it's hard to make a case that there's a monopoly anywhere.
Okay, I stand corrected.
But I think.
Well, yeah, I'm not correcting you. I'm just saying it's.
I think the point is that
Jennifer.
the other charging stations are more, other different types, brands can use those charging stations. And with the Tesla ones, you can't. But I didn't know if there was an adapter that is possible.
There is.
There's an adapter to be able to use a Tesla at a regular charging station, but not vice versa.
Exactly.
Can't use, as far as I know. But,
Hey, Del.
yes.
Tim is on the call and he just had a question. Tim Rogers.
Okay.
He wanted to
Okay.
ask about this one.
Okay, hi, Tim.
Hey, Adele. You can just Google, you can buy an adapter for other EVs to use at Tesla supercharging stations.
So you can.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Is Mr.
Yeah.
Noteworthy still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, so
Is
it's
that true?
correct that our network is proprietary to our cars. There's no adapter out there that you'd be able to use to charge at our stations unless you're a Tesla driver.
Right. It's the other way around, Tim. You take a Tesla adapter and put it on a regular charging station.
Yeah.
But you can't do it.
Well,
the
I know
other way
you can
around.
buy that, but what is being sold online that is an adapter in the other direction?
Nothing.
And I believe Elon Musk has said the same thing, that you can buy an adapter to use at Tesla supercharging stations, and he's not sure why people don't do that.
So what Elon has said, and we're allowed to disclose naturally things that he's tweeting and releasing at public events, is that the intention of our network is to open up to the general public at some point. We're not there yet, but at some point, we do want to allow other OEMs to charge at our infrastructure. Like I said, he's tweeted that. He's been clear about that. There's no sort of details along to go with that, but into the future, that is the idea behind our charging infrastructure. But right now, it's our customers only.
But you can buy an adapter even if this is not set up for that at this time. But the plan is to make it so that any EV could charge at a Tesla station.
Eventually.
Yeah, you might be talking about maybe a different market in another country, but right now there's no adapter. It's just our charging network is for our cars only, and you wouldn't be able to charge there unless you had a Tesla.
Okay. Thank you. So, do we have a motion to accept this resolution?
So move.
Okay. Second,
Second.
any discussion, any further discussion? All in favor?
If you could just do a roll call on this one as well.
Okay. Adele, aye.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Lyle,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Jane.
Aye.
Okay, you guys have it. 5 ayes.
Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have 130 Du Bois Road, Trapani, Montessori. Matt's gonna present this.
Are the applicants here? I think I saw them.
Yes, Patty Brooks is here representing Whispering Woods, and Joy Trapani is here as well.
How's it going?
Very
So we have a couple questions, but we're gonna start with Mr. Willingham about the comments that he wrote, and just talk about that for a second. So Andy.
Okay, so as I understand it, this was approved in 2015, and it talked about starting with 25 students, but it was approved for 45 students at that time. So this looks like they're not increasing, they're staying at 45 students. They're just doing an addition to have more space and a small addition for a bathroom is how I understand it. And if that's the case, then this becomes a much more simple application. So my comments were just that I saw that the septic was approved, and there wasn't a flow rate on there. So I just wanted to verify that the septic was installed for 25 students. It was installed for 45 students. Provide a written request for any waivers needed from site plan, elements on the site plan. And then lastly, there's a little piece of fenced in area that goes onto the property to the south. And as I understand, they own both properties, but I don't know. This might be a better question for Ashley, but it seems more clean cut. They want to do an easement over that area, over the property to use it. Seems more clean cut to just put a piece of fence and keep all the use for this use on one property. That was it.
Okay.
So can we just answer the question? So was everything approved for 45 kids initially?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so that's what we just had to clarify that. And I have to agree with Andy about the fence. Like putting things on two properties always gets a little confusing down the road because it's approved for one property, not for both properties. So I saw that fence looks like it's just a small triangle that's going into the other property. Can we adjust it maybe to fit on the one, or is that a big space?
So the adjoining property is owned actually by the applicants, although it's a separate tax parcel. So we didn't think that it really would be, you know, it's a very small section of fence, but again, having to relocate the fence when they're already utilizing that space, and it squares off the backyard. So it is currently being utilized by the students.
Okay. So Ashley, I guess are we gonna have to do something else because it's on 2 parcels?
Yeah, so since it's on 2 parcels, you would need the other property to be part of the site plan application as well. If it's owned by the same party, the easement issue is a little more complicated because you can't have an easement to yourself typically. So if you wanted to have something in there to protect, in the future, if they were to sell that adjacent property, that way they could continue to use it because that's what's going to be approved here. We could frame it in some way that the easement will spring into effect, in the future, once at that time of that future sale. But if they are going to be proposing to keep it as it is, then the other property does need to be part of the application as well.
Yeah, they certainly would not want to encumber that entire property by the site plan application, because obviously that would restrict their further ability to subdivide it and so forth. So I'll discuss it with the applicants, now with the knowledge of what it would take to leave the fence there, and determine what best should happen.
We had another case recently where it was a trucking company, and they owned the adjoining property, and they were parking trailers and equipment on the neighboring property, which wasn't approved for that use. So these things do come up, on crossing over the line. It's better not to say anything than to try and establish some, legitimate cause for it,
It's also really small. It's the size of like a parking space. So is there something special about that little triangle that you wanna use? Or seems like a lot of effort for a little space.
If I could just mention that, during the pandemic, we set up some tents in the backyard, and we're utilizing every possible area that we have. The fence company that installed the fence in error squared it off because the lot is like a weird triangular shaped. It was an accident. If we're required to move it, I will move it. But it would be really helpful if we could get that easement. We own the school property as an LLC, and we purchased the land next door partially, just to have extra space if we wanted it. But we didn't want to join the lots yet. So if there's any way we could have that little space and then an easement, that would be great. And if not, then Patty and I will discuss if we have to move the fence.
Does moving that
LLC that owns both parcels?
No, the LLC.
Oh, okay. So then that's different, and that eliminates the issue I was concerned about being owned by the same party.
Right. We own the land next door.
Is there a setback for a fence? Andy?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Are you guys considering joining the properties, or you're not ready for that move yet?
We're not ready for it. It came on auction, and it was soon after the realization that the fence was on that other property. So we thought that it helped to solve that issue when it was brought up at the planning board meeting previously. And we just bought it to have it so that we can keep it wooded and beautiful next door, so that we didn't have another house moving in right next to the school.
Right.
When we came before the board, we only had a small group of kids, and now, we've expanded and just want to have a little more space for them. That's all we're looking.
So Patricia, you can talk to her about that and come back to us, I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess in light of the fact that one of the properties is owned by the LLC and the other property is owned by them individually, it seems that it is a possibility to do the easement and leave it the way it is. I mean, is the planning board totally adverse to that?
As a condition of our approval.
I'm not adverse to it.
Not adverse to it. I think if you come back and show that to us,
Yeah, we are willing to stipulate it in the plan.
Yeah, it is shown on the site plan right now that the easement to be granted to Whispering Woods LLC for the area of the fence located on lands of Trapani and Banra. Stipulated on the map at this
It
point.
sounds like it's a paperwork situation. So I think Ashley's gonna have to take a look at it and figure out how we're gonna word that. Right?
Yeah, so in addition to being shown on the map, there would be an easement agreement between the two property owners. So saying what it is, it's locating the fence there and also allowing, the school to utilize that section of the property, things like that.
second
So-
added to the deed.
It would be something, an easement that would be
we would-
filed with the county clerk, so it would be in the chain of title for the deed.
We would file a separate easement agreement between them.
Yes.
So Ashley, do you have a template easement agreement that you would like the applicants to consider, or should they have their attorney draft something?
I think it would make sense to have your attorney draft something. I just don't think there's anything I have that's similar to, this is kind of a unique easement. I can't think of anything offhand that would be comparable.
So Ashley, if I can, my name's Eileen Benira. I'm also the co-owner of the property in question. Is it something that we could stipulate as a condition of approval that if the property ever transferred, we would move the fence? I'd be happy to, stipulate that in the as a condition of the resolution, because it really is, it's a very small section. The property transferring would require a subdivision. There's zero frontage of that lot. If you look on a tax map, there's about 5 feet of frontage. So it would require our whole project to come in for a subdivision and everything. So the likelihood of it changing hands is unlikely, number one, without a subdivision. And then the second thing is it's really it seems to be a little overkill for, I'm going to say probably 20 square feet. And it's particularly different than what Mr. Nolan had described with a commercial or industrial property. So it's nothing that there's going to be some creeping activity. We would be back before the board for that. And, that's just my, my request if possible.
So again, Eileen, what we're proposing to do is just to file an easement with the county clerk, because if the fence is on another property, that property has to be part of the application for the site plan. And I don't think you want to do that.
No, we definitely don't want to do that.
So it's
So
not,
the
if I could just,
easement
maybe
is
I
the
could just
simplest
correct or maybe clarify what is meant by that. So that the other property has to be part of this site plan. Part of their property is going to be used as part of this site plan. So they do have to, file an owner's endorsement saying, yes, I authorize. I understand it's the same applicant in a sense, but it's a different LLC. So someone needs to be submitting that paperwork to say, yes, this other LLC is authorizing this. And then that piece is going to be part of, it's going to restrict how that part of the site, that adjoining site can be used. So it's going to be essentially a site plan for that portion of the site as well. So that's what is meant by it has to be part of this.
Okay.
That other property has to be, looked at as part of this application.
Okay, so we'll discuss that with Patty then.
And then the easement gives a legal, ability for the school to use that property that's owned by a different entity.
Okay.
So just so that I'm clear, if they leave the fence where it is, it would require two things: the easement and the inclusion of that property in the site plan application.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll decide, yeah.
Does anybody have anything else?
I have just a couple of comments procedurally. Under seeker, it's a type 2 action. And it does require referral to the Ulster County Planning Board under general municipal law.
Under what criteria?
So the property is within, let me see where it is.
Yeah, I'm not thinking it meets any of the criteria.
No. could just give me 1 minute.
Absolutely. We do need to circulate the ag data statement, which was not a requirement in 2014, now that Carl Family Farms has gone in across the street with their cattle farm. But we still do not trigger any Ulster County Planning Board referral.
Sorry, I'm just looking for it. I was not originally covering this meeting, so I'm just trying to find the specific basis. I know that it didn't qualify as the reuse or reoccupancy exemption under the agreement with Ulster County because there was the addition. Andy, do you know if that's correct? Are they not within 500 feet of a trigger?
You're on mute.
I'm on mute. All right. I don't think they're not within 500 feet of town boundary or municipal boundary, not a state road.
I know you said the ag district form was required, so is it within 500 feet of an active farm?
The farm, maybe?
Yeah, but I don't think that I would have to pull it up. I mean, certainly that's something that we can work out if it needs to be circulated, but I don't think that, because it's within 500 feet of an active farm, but there's another criteria to that. So, but if it needs to be referred, I would say that I would like to review
Yeah, so Carl Farms across the street, right?
Yes.
So that's probably where you got it, Ashley.
Yeah, the boundary of a farm operation located in an agricultural district. So it's in an ag district, correct?
This property is not in an ag
district. The farm
district.
is in the county ag district?
The farm is in the county ag district.
So that's what then would trigger that. The boundary of a farm operation located in an ag district as defined under Article 25 AA of the Ag and Markets Law.
And it's active, right?
It is active, absolutely. It's a cattle farm.
Okay, Matt, we have to type this? You wanna?
Yeah, so can I make a motion and make it a type 2? Right, I make a motion that the Trapani project, we'll call it, is a type 2 action under seeker.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Ashley. Okay.
Thank you.
And
This does have to go to county, right?
do we have to make a motion to send it to county?
You can. I don't know if this board normally does. Some boards do.
We don't normally.
I don't think we normally do.
Yeah, I think you just acknowledge that it'll be referred and then Alana will take care of that.
Yeah, so their meeting is next week. I feel like usually they want more time, but I can try and get in touch with Rob Leibowitz tomorrow and see if he'll accept it. Maybe if like their agenda is not too packed, they won't have a problem with it. But if they say no, it's too late, I'll let you know, or I'll CC you on the email, Patty, then when I send it. Does that work?
Okay, that would be great. Mm-hmm. And then usually, if it has to go up to Rob, I email him the package so that he has everything for the meeting.
Yeah, I do it in Dropbox, and then I email him, and I'm like, everything's up there. But I'll get in touch with him first to make sure that they'll accept it and everything.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Oh, sorry, Matt.
No, I was just gonna say, does anybody have anything else? I think that's it until next time. We don't have to have a public hearing, right?
No, the public hearing is discretionary.
Okay, so I think we're good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just recalled, and I think Andy had given his comments already, so they should know, but there was, I think, the request for the written waivers of whatever.
Yeah, I'll get with Andy because I read through them today and I didn't see where any were applicable, but I just want to have somebody else review that and make sure that I don't need to request any waivers.
Okay.
Good.
So no public hearing is required for this?
No, that's correct.
And so obviously no posting then. Okay. So we would be back on the agenda for which meeting?
June
Well,
14th.
it depends on what the county gets back to us.
So we
Right.
can ask for placement on the June 14th meeting, and then the board just wouldn't be able to act if you don't have Ulster County Planning Board comments. Is that the?
Correct.
Okay. So if it's possible, I guess I would request at this time to be placed on the June 14th agenda, and we'll hope that we have Ulster County Planning Board comments
Yeah.
back.
I don't know what that meeting's agenda looks like. Alana knows.
I'll tentatively, we can put it on there, assuming that the county decides to review it. And they usually, like I said, they get back to me with comments, the next day, a day later. So you would definitely have them by the meeting.
So fingers crossed. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your assistance this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Matt. Okay, next on the agenda is 200 Mountain Rest Road. I think the way to introduce this, maybe we hear from the applicant, the applicant's the Village of New Paltz. And then we hear from our engineer and then Ashley. Is that good? Sound good? Okay. So who's here to speak for the village? Oh, I don't hear you.
It's muted.
It's actually, it doesn't look muted, but it's not working.
It says it's muted.
Mine says she's not muted.
Mine doesn't show as, doesn't look as though she's muted.
Tim is here too.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
It's good. Hello? Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Sorry about that. I'm Karen Lobruto. I'm a senior planner with the Chazen Companies, and we are here to present the proposal for the subdivision. I've got a presentation I'll share. Let's see here. So Village of New Paltz Groundwater Resource Development Project. As you guys are probably already aware, the village has been working for a while to find clean and reliable water sources at an affordable price for water district customers. They've determined that a cost-effective and simple option is to increase the amounts of locally sourced groundwater for the village and town residents served by the municipal system, which would involve the installation of 4 new groundwater source wells that will provide supplemental water to top up the reservoirs that currently service the village's water system. The primary motivation is to increase the capacity of the reservoirs in a cost-effective manner. The town of New Paltz is a beneficiary, as well as town residents, our water district customers, and the village and SUNY New Paltz water customers as well. The New York City Department of Environmental Protection, or DEP, is providing funding to support the project. So here's a picture of the site. The larger parcel is the town-owned parcel. The smaller parcel is the parcel that's proposed for subdivision from the Mohonk property. located at 200 Mountain Rest Road, 2 tax parcels, zoned agricultural A3. As I mentioned, the town of New Paltz owns the larger parcel. It's leased to the village for water utility purposes. The small portion shown there is part of a much larger 200-acre owned parcel by the Mohawk Preserve. The proposed project is connect and operate 4 new water source wells for water supply purposes. We're here with regard to the subdivision of the 2.4 acre area, which is necessary to allow for an additional well and protective buffer as required by the New York State Sanitary Code. The parcel would be conveyed to the town and converted to water utility, which is a permitted use within the A3 district. The parcels would be consolidated. So we're requesting a subdivision approval, and on May 20th, waivers were granted by the town for site plan, grading, and steep slope permits. Here's a list of the other permits and approvals that are required. As you are probably already aware, the Village of New Paltz is the lead agency for the seeker review of this project. Other permits and approvals include the reimbursement approval to be reimbursed by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. There are no area variances needed any longer. That was something we sorted out some time ago. Department of Health from state and county approval, Department of Environmental Conservation for water withdrawal and water quality certificates. And of course, the acquisition of this 2.4 acre parcel by the Town Board of New Paltz. So just to talk a little about the design, the wells are 6 inches in diameter and installed to a depth of 500 feet below ground. The well design and locations were approved by Ulster County's Department of Health and the state DEC. Water quality analyses indicate that the water is of good quality, requiring routine disinfection, treatment for manganese and iron, and that water quality is not directly influenced by surface water quality from the nearby streams or wetlands. The water will be pumped directly into the existing surface water reservoirs, and combined well water and surface water will be treated by the existing water treatment plant. So this shows a little bit of the design. This is the parcel, the 2.4 acre parcel that's proposed to be subdivided from the larger 200 acre Mohawk parcel and consolidated with the town's parcel here. You see the 3 other wells on the town's property marked with these circles, which are the buffers that I spoke of before, required by New York State Sanitary Code. And that's what I've got. I've got the survey here showing the proposed lot line subdivision, lot line adjustment, I guess. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Andy? I don't see you. Thank you.
Okay, so this project, it was a little tricky kind of procedurally figuring out all the pieces of it, but it seems like it got more simple in the last few days. So it would have required, if this was just a regular project by an applicant, it would have required a site plan approval and clearing, grading permit, a steep slopes permit, and subdivision approval from this planning board. But Ashley could probably describe this better. There are a lot, since the Village of New Paltz is the applicant and the town of New Paltz is getting the land, you can waive zoning permits. So there, on Thursday night, the town board waived the clearing and grading requirements, the steep slopes requirements, and the site plan requirement. So it does not have to get approved by this board. Subdivision, they can't waive. So we're still looking at this project. This board is as for subdivision lot line revision. And then as far as the environmental review, I thought that this board was going to be lead agency. So a couple of my comments are related to that, but it turns out the village board is lead agency. So Ashley can get into more of the seeker's going to work. So really the only one of my comments that relate, so my comments are only related to the subdivision. And I just had a couple of minor things. It was pretty complete. So just a written request for any waivers. If you go through the subdivision code and if there's anything that's not on that map, you need a waiver for, just you need to provide a written request. It's been the town's policy to get a written request for sidewalk improvements for any subdivision, which I imagine would be, this isn't really a candidate for sidewalks. And actually, the rest of my comments are related to the seeker process, which I don't think applies to this board now that it's going to be the village board that's handling seeker. And that was it. And I'll only add that it's a good project for the town of New Paltz to get their own water supply and not have to buy it from the DEP. So it's a good project.
It was my understanding, thanks, Andy. It was my understanding that we need to vote in order to have the village become the lead agency. Ashley, is that true?
So I don't believe that this board has previously consented to the village board being the lead agency. So I don't know, Karen might have a better idea of the notice of intent process and when that happened, but I think it would be appropriate tonight for this board to consent, vote to consent or consider a motion to consent to the village board of trustees acting as lead agency.
Yes, that did not happen yet, as far as I know.
So I could just provide a bit more context if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, we did circulate the lead agency notice of intent. I believe it was on March 26th. And so it's a 30-day circulation notification period during which if you were objecting, you would object at that point. But after the 30 days is up, it's acknowledged as consent for seeker.
Did we ever receive that?
You should have.
So part of it is my mistake. So I received that a while back and I had reached out to whoever the engineer was originally from Chazen, and I had asked for a digital copy because it was a very thick copy and I wanted to be able to circulate it digitally. And then I ended up getting in touch with Karen, and then there was the whole process of dealing with the application itself. So I honestly wasn't quite sure what was going on with the notice of intent. So I will own that that was a mistake on my part, I guess. But that was essentially what had happened because the whole project got a little confusing because a bunch of different stuff happened at one point about what was actually being applied for. And then we got different versions of plans and all that stuff. So that's my fault.
Well, what happens legally, Ashley, if we hadn't had proper notice?
If you haven't, I mean.
Have we had proper notice?
It was, I guess it was sent to you by being sent to Alana. So I think arguably you did. I think at this point you can still, if you were inclined to consent, you could still reflect that in the record if you're treating it as if you didn't have proper notice because you didn't get the additional copies that were requested. I guess the question is whether there's any objection at all to that.
Why don't we go through the process in case we'll see where we're at. And if we're not going to object, I think we'll just dot our I's and cross our T's because we didn't actually get notice. So why don't we take the vote? And that way it should be, more clear. Does anybody want to make that motion?
Can I ask another question?
Yep.
If this land is being accessed to the town of New Paltz, correct? We're asked the village is being lead agency because it's a village project. I just want to be clear, since it's the town of New Paltz that's buying the land from Mohawk, is my understanding. Is that correct, Ms. Labruto?
That's correct. So that's one action of many actions. And if it would be helpful, I could share my screen and just kind of go through what all of those many actions are. But I guess the reason the village is the lead agency is because they are undertaking the action to start, I mean, without their project to find these additional sources of water, we wouldn't need the subdivision.
So they're doing the project essentially, they need to be lead agency because they're doing the project even though it is on town land.
That's,
And they've been given the waiver to do that on town land. Is that correct?
so they've been given a waiver to not have to undergo site plan approval, steep slope or grading permit approval by the town's planning board, but subdivision is still required. And the town board's decision to acquire the 2.4 acres is still required.
Okay, but if the village, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be obstructive. I'm just trying to understand this. If the village is doing building or engineering on town land.
May I explain something to?
Sure, of course.
This is a town of New Paltz project. The village of New Paltz is the administrator for municipal water. So this is a town project because the village is responsible for managing municipal water that serves the village, who are town residents, town outside of the village, town districts, SUNY New Paltz, the K through 12 school district. This is a town of New Paltz project. The village is just the entity within the town that's responsible for its administration. So basically, you're just approving your own project. This is not a village specific project. This is a town of New Paltz project.
Well, that's, I guess that was what I had assumed from reading all the material. And I understood exactly what you just explained. So my question is, then if this is a now town of New Paltz project and the village is administering it, why is the village planning board rather than the town planning board lead agency? I just like a clarification.
So it's the village board of trustees, I believe, that's the lead agency or that declared its intent, not the planning board.
Thank you. That makes sense then. Okay.
Okay, why don't we take the vote and just go through that process. Jane, you want to make the motion? The village of New Paltz.
I thought that, did somebody else not make it already? Sure. I move that the village of New Paltz trustees be made lead agency for the water project that takes place on the town of New Paltz land.
Seeker review.
Seeker review. Is that right, Ashley?
Yes, it could be, you move that you consent to the village of New Paltz Board of Trustees being the lead agency under seeker for the.
Correct. Yes.
For this project.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 5. Okay, so I think in our minds, I feel better that we did that, even rather than get into an argument as to the notice and all this other stuff.
I have a couple of more questions just based on this plan that perhaps Mayor Rogers can answer. I didn't see an access road. Lyle, did you on the plan? How do you guys get in there to do the drilling? It's forest.
This is Tim. The drilling was done about 3.5 years ago. So this is a project that we've been working on with the Mohonk Preserve. And there are, and I think what was described in the Chazen presentation is we're talking about 4 different wellheads on 4 different geologic features. Actually, well 4 and well 5. So this is well 4. Well 4 and well 5 are on a similar geologic feature, but there are a total of 4 wells. 3 of them are on the currently town of New Paltz owned water treatment plant property, and this 4th one is just on the other side of the property. Like you just walk there. There's a
I read the map. I understand that, but are you drilling a new well as the 4th one?
Already drilled, already tested.
Okay. Okay.
The only reason we're doing this is because it has been tested for quality and yield, and it's it's a well that's worth investing in and connecting to our treatment plant.
Okay, because there was stuff in there about blasting, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, they're going in there and I don't see a road. So that's why I was asking. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
It's more like a path.
Yeah, I
it's
saw a
small.
path.
This is, we could go walk up there sometime. I've been to
I'd love
meetings
that.
and it's
I'd love to see it, really.
beautiful. The reservoirs are incredibly beautiful. Where these wells are sited, it's incredibly beautiful. It's exactly the kind of place where you want to get your drinking water from.
Good.
And just to speak briefly about blasting, I think what we said was that no blasting was anticipated, that it would be
right.
roofing. But, in addition to the wells that have already been installed, there is the conduit and all of the utility connections.
Sure.
That's to address disturbance of that effect as well.
Right. Well, when I see anticipated, that is why I asked the question whether the wells had been drilled. And then if they had not been, I would have asked about, blasting in that area. So that it's all not necessary now.
All right, Jennifer, did you have a question?
No, personal question. Maybe I should ask on the side since I live on Mountain Rest Road and I have a well.
Interesting.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Like, so when that water district was created, the Mountain Rest Road residents, that are town residents, were given the option to connect to the well. To the village municipal water system. And the previous owners of my home decided not to do that. Is this option going to be given to residents that haven't connected before?
Must live much further down on Mountain Rest. You're probably not close to the water treatment plant property.
No, I'm at.
Are you near Spees Road?
Spees Road, it would be above the plant.
Right,
So
Spees is above, but it
right,
looks like it's fairly, it's on the way.
right,
It's pretty far up.
Right. I grew up off of Mountain Rest Road. So the only properties that could connect, that I guess it's considered water district number 4. These were the first out of the village customers that were offered connection in probably the 1970s, because my parents were offered a connection and they couldn't.
I live in front of your parents' house.
Right. So if you are not connected, you could on your dime connect at this point. But
right.
Back in the 70s, my parents were offered to connect for like $2,000 and they couldn't afford it.
Right. I think that's what happened with our house.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if not just for me, but anybody else on the road or in that district that wanted to connect, if there was going to be any additional offer at this point.
Yeah, this project and Water District 4 have nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is up next to the treatment plant property. So even if you lived next to the treatment plant property, there wouldn't be enough pressure from the main coming off the road to serve your house.
So this is just adding to the general water supply for the village?
Yeah, so we currently buy 60% of our water from the DEP, depending on precipitation, and 40% we source from the 4 upland reservoirs. So this will just hopefully allow us to buy less of that expensive DEP water that's appreciated at 289% in the last 16 years.
I have to tell you, Tim, I don't mind paying for the water. I don't. I'm happy to pay for the water.
Mm-hmm. So
I know you're concerned with the increase in costs, and I know many residents are, and this is a very good project, but it's okay. I'll pay you more if you want to up my bill.
We always want to have a connection to the DEP. I think that's incredibly valuable to always have a connection to the Catskill Aqueduct and the Ashokan Reservoir as our backup. We just want to buy less of it if we can, instead of buying 60%, if we can buy some number less than 60% and then source more local water, because actually our local water is of higher quality and it costs less to then put through our multi-million-dollar water treatment filtration plant. So then the operating expenses of the filtration plant will be less if we're putting super high quality water through it, which is this entire, the entire world of water filtration is pretty silly. We're taking like incredibly high quality water from the Ashokan, putting it through a $5.5 million plant. We're taking incredibly high quality water from the reservoirs, putting it through this $5.5 million plant. you know, you could drink this water fresh. You don't need to put it through these fancy filtration systems,
Yeah.
but that's what we're required to do by law.
And is the chlorination part of that too?
Yeah, all
That's the
municipal water
filter,
has to
that's the
be
filtration.
disinfected with chlorine.
Yeah.
Even New York City has to disinfect water with chlorine. They don't have to filter it, but they have to disinfect it.
They sure don't filter it.
Okay. We're all good. Anybody else have questions? Okay, is there anything else we need to do? Ashley?
So just procedurally, you need to have a public hearing on the application, but you can't do that until seeker's complete. So I don't know, if Karen had, or Mayor Rogers have an update as to where the village is with the seeker review process, but you'll have to wait to schedule the public hearing until that's completed.
I can say that we are anticipating a seeker determination on Wednesday at the village board meeting. So the 26th.
So do you want to come back after that, right after that?
I mean, I think we'd like to complete the process as soon as possible. I'm not sure,
Okay, why don't we?
Can we put them on the agenda? Can we put them on the agenda for the 14th as well? Hoping that they'll get it.
Alana, are we good?
Yeah, I don't see why not. You just set the public hearing and then I'm
Okay.
assuming they'll make the determination at the next meeting and then it's fine. I'll just send out all the noticing stuff.
Do we want to do that now? Set the public hearing already?
Yeah. No, I think we have to, shouldn't we wait until they finish, just in case they don't?
Yeah, you could wait. Technically, the application is not complete for purposes of the subdivision until seeker is complete.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, then I think we're set.
Are there any questions for us?
At our next meeting, we'll set the public hearing. As long as everything is completed at the village, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Night.